Let's talk about kind of aerial photography and satellite imagery, kind of overhead imagery types of technologies. Like, I guess there's NDVI and there's, magnetic resonance technologies, and there's, various different kind of ground penetrating radar technologies. Can you just talk a little bit about kind of what those technologies do and kind of compare and contrast that to what you get with soil sensors?
Sure. So a really common remote imagery, whether it's satellite or plane or drone, is NDVI. So you're looking at the red near infrared ratio, which is really looking at the amount of plant cells.
Okay.
And so plant cells reflect, they absorb the red light and they reflect infrared, and the soil does the reverse. So you can actually see how many plant cells are out there. And that's great for looking at variability around the field. But I'll give you an example. If I've got a very, very vigorous part of the field and I'm going, wow, this is fantastic. It's a little bit like being in my pickup truck doing 80 miles down the road. If I'm not watching the gas gauge, I could run out of gas. And if I've got a really vigorous crop, it may be running out of water faster than what I think. So I need to look underground and actually check the gas gauge as well, see what's going on with the soil moisture. I need to see what's going on with the root system. Just because it's vigorous on top doesn't necessarily mean it's vigorous underneath. I need to know where the water is going. And so if I'm not looking underground, I don't know whether the water is penetrated to refill my root zone. I need to know how deep that is, but I also need to know that I'm refilling it. I need to know what's the effect of rainfall as well. So looking on top is fantastic to look at the variability, but it's only half the story. And you can't diagnose the problem if you're not really looking at underground. And the other thing about soil moisture sensors is that you're taking readings every 15 or 30 minutes through the day and night, and so you can watch the plant drink, and it's like taking its pulse. And so if you know the speed of growth, and it's not a snapshot in time. If I take a picture, it's a snapshot, and I might come back tomorrow or usually 3 or 7 days later and take another snapshot, and anything can happen in that time. Whereas if I'm watching where I am today and how I got there, and I can see how the plant is setting up, then I've got a much better way of heading off issues. The remote sensing is 20/20 hindsight. It shows you where the problems are and where to go and look, but it doesn't really help you look forward and plan out what's to come. And so what we're about is setting up an irrigation template that is a roadmap for success, and it will give you guidance going, not just being able to look back at how I got here, but also give you a pathway forward to get the best yield and quality. And there are other forms of remote sensing, I guess spatial mapping, let's say, like electromagnetic resonance EM surveys. Yeah. They'll tell you variability out there in a field from looking at different soils. You can look at topography, you can look at all these things, and they all matter and they all come together and they all fit and help each other. And so if I'm a farmer, I want to use all the tools in the toolbox. But the tool I'm going to go to the most is soil moisture monitoring, because that is the heartbeat of the plant. And that plant can teach me what it needs and how to deal with it better so that we get a much better result.
So I've heard this argument that the aerial photography satellite imagery gives you this broad scale view, and that gives you a bigger benefit compared to a soil moisture sensor, which is a very narrow view. Well, what would you say about that in terms of kind of your perspective?
Well, I think that aerial imagery does give you a broad view, and It helps catch the problems. So if I've got, for example, a block nozzle on a center pivot, I'm going to see a ring around that pivot that's low vigor, or it's going to stand out. So I can go out there and sure enough, I can identify the problem and fix it. There's value in that, no doubt. If I have a drip system and I see that there's a stripe through the field, I might have a blocked run, blocked pipe, so I can go and fix it. There's value in there for sure. But what that does is it probably helps get some uniformity out there, but it doesn't necessarily help you raise the bar. And what we're about is helping you become a better farmer by watching and reacting to the plant itself. And through my experience, what I've found is that you can model things and you can think you know what the plant needs, or you can listen to the plant. The plant will tell you what it needs. You just have to know how to listen to it and read the signatures, let's say.
So basically, you've got a broad scale, better rear view mirror with these various aerial photography, satellite imagery methods, helps with problem identification, but soil moisture sensing, as well as what we do in the cloud from a machine learning perspective and adding additional information, is complementary to that, but it's more diagnostic and prescriptive, kind of looking forward in terms of how to, like you said, do strategic irrigation management. Is that a good paraphrase?
I'm always going to need to go on ground truth, an aerial image.
Okay.
So it's going to show me variability within the field. So I'm going to go out to a high spot and see what's that like, and I'm going to go out to a low spot and see what that's like, and so I can, but I'm still going to have to go out there.
Yeah.
If I've got a point in that field where I'm monitoring in great detail in real time, and I know exactly what's going on there, and then I can know how that spot relates to the rest of the field, no doubt I'm better off. So they are very complementary technologies. But what aerial imagery would tend to do is to narrow the standard deviation, let's say, like keep things more uniform, but it won't necessarily keep you in the zone to raise the average.
Okay.
What we're about is really raising the average and doing it fundamentally better, not just more uniform.